churches are intergenerational by default. And some people see that as like a con, right? Like there isn't a young moms group. There isn't a young adult group. Praise God. Like that's one of the beauties of small churches is that it's just intergenerational. And there's so much life on life mentoring that happens by default, like just doing life together with mentors, with young, with old mixed together. And the third biggest difference that I see in mega churches versus little churches is there is no one size fits all. Every little church is different than the little church next door. They don't look the same. They don't sound the same. The parking lot's not the same. There's so much uniqueness in there.
Yeah, I loved it. We were, so Dave and I met at a big church in Minneapolis. The big church was huge. And then our small church was 600 singles. And then they would break it down into Sunday schools of 100, 150. And then there would be Bible studies in homes, to try to take this big, gigantic thing down into something you could build relationships in. And, I think because of my background with big church as well as small church, we're in a small church now. I love them both. And there's definitely a place for both. And what cracks me up is people have opinions about both that are like, I don't want to go to a church like that. You just get lost and you never, or that little church, I can never go to a church that small. And the thing is that God is using all of them.
Yeah, for sure. God works so differently. And that's one thing we always say is that small church ministry isn't less, but it is different. Like it is so uniquely different. As I said, I worked in big churches. I've worked in mid-sized churches. I've worked in little churches. Like God had to change my heart to fall in love with the small church. I have to be honest. Like I love a church of about 300 to 500 because I can find enough people who are like me and enough people who are different and enough. But being in a small church and raising my kids now for 12 years in the church where we're at, there are such beautiful differences. Like, no, my son never had a good youth group. Honestly, sorry, but he didn't. He didn't have the big youth group experience, but he also never had that drama, right? But he also has about 6 men who he would consider grandpas and uncles and people who have literally taught him skills that he works with, that he wants to be around, whether it's building and construction or playing the percussion. And so there's just beautiful differences in small churches. And I think that's one of the things that gets missed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the greatest challenges that are faced by small churches?
It's so interesting when you had asked me that question earlier, because the greatest challenges when people find me and talk about what their greatest challenges is, the biggest things they will say is lack of volunteers, lack of money, lack of budget, lack of people, lack of even that group dynamic, right? When you have 50 kids in a room, it's very different than when you have 3, right? But I don't think that's the biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge is wrong thinking in small churches.
Being okay.
It's that wrong thinking that we need more people. Because if you look at the life of Jesus's ministry, which I would consider like the best ministry on the planet, right? What happened? Was he always around all these people? He preached to a crowd of 5,000 plus, right? All the women, and he had this huge mega event. Think of it that way, right? He had this huge mega event. How many people came back to church the next Sunday? Right? And yet small churches, we think we have a big VBS and we're like, oh, nobody joined our church though. Well, then you're just like Jesus. Nobody followed him either. And when 3 people came into Bible study, he didn't say, oh, what? There's only 3? What am I doing wrong? I don't think Jesus ever hung his head thinking, oh, what am I doing wrong? They're not sticking with me. He dies and there's no followers. And that wasn't a diminutive thing. It was God's glory was shown, right? And so if your church isn't growing, it doesn't mean God isn't there. He is there because he says he's always working. So I honestly think the biggest challenge is this wrong thinking that we're doing something wrong if our church isn't growing in numbers. Not true. You're just like Jesus, right?
I really love that. And I do feel like it's the hardest thing for us to accept and embrace where God has us right now on the way to where he's taking us, which we actually don't know.
Yes.
We have visions and we have dreams, but we actually don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that like a Joseph, I don't think he could have possibly known even though he had those dreams or whatever, he had no idea where God was taking him.
Yeah.
And was he a failure all those years in the middle time before he reached where God was taking him? Or you got, like John, who ended up on the Isle of Patmos writing Revelations all by himself, or with just a few other prisoners around him there.
Yeah.
We have no idea where God is taking us, but whatever he's doing today, he's preparing us for that thing he's going to do next.
Yeah. And think of how much time we lose worrying about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
oh, are we supposed to be here? What should we be doing? What was that about? Instead of just like embracing this place, because I just really pictured Jesus walking into a room and saying, oh, there's one.
Yeah.
Not, oh, where's everybody else? There's only one here. Like, I think there's that embracing and trusting that God has us in a place. And as long as we're seeking him and walking with him and choosing to kind of bow our knee and bend and go to him and say, hey, we have to trust that God is doing this and embrace that place, right? Whether we're at the grocery store or we're working a day job or at home or here or there, like why does God have you in that place? Can you embrace it? Can you see it? Can you actually see him at work?
Yeah.
Instead of wondering what's wrong or what tomorrow is, he says he's here with us right now, right? Like he's always at work. That's in the Bible. And my Father is always at work.
Right.
So where is he working? Like, join him.
Do you feel like, I feel like one of the things that's challenging is that there's, just like with, we always say with women, we compare ourselves to each other. In churches, I think there's a comparison challenge that's always there, tempting us to say, oh, but they had more people, but they grew faster. But my friend from seminary, he has, I think that's always there, just kind of banging away at the peace.
Yeah. And our modern day culture does not help it at all, because when you look up books about youth ministry, children's ministry, church ministry, you see so much on church growth. Okay. That it's not biblical. Okay. And I get that God added to their numbers in Acts, but if you look at the whole counsel of the Bible, there is nothing that says, if you do it this way, your numbers will grow. Not in the way we think. Now, yes, God wants more and more people to know him. Like, I'm all about the gospel. Like, don't hear me saying we should stay like in a bubble. Right. Yeah. But there's so much in our society that says, if you do it right, you're going to grow. That's not biblical. If you do it right, you're going to see God at work. Right. There was a church out in the Appalachians. It was like, I think it was a church of like 25. And I was at a conference and Operation Christmas Child was talking. And this church of like 25 people, like backwoods Appalachian, poor church, collected and sent over 10,000. Like, I'm going to get all emotional now. 10,000 shoeboxes for Operation Christmas Child. Like, what is that? And what they had said is, God showed us this was our mission.
Wow.
They weren't trying to do all these different things. Right. They did this one thing. And every year, God grew it in this amazing God grew it. Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? Like, if we do things right and follow the plan, who gets the glory for that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, let God's glory come in a different way, because there isn't one right way. There isn't one system. So I totally agree with you on the comparison thing. It messes with our heads. It just totally messes with what God has in mind for us.
Yeah. There was a missionary, and I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was to China. And he spent his whole life, and I think he saw like one person come to Christ. But after he was dead, that's when the fruit showed up. And I do really feel like one of the most freeing things for me personally in ministry was that the creation of the fruit was not my problem. I was just a hanger. And whatever fruit God wanted to grow on that, whether it was the fruit I was looking for or some different fruit, and maybe the fruit was patience or perseverance, that was God's part. And my part was to just say yes and let him do what he's working on.
Yeah. Oh, people get so frustrated. Like, why can't I get these people motivated? Why can't I get more people? Well, you know what? Like, going back to the fruit, like an orange matures at its own rate. Right. You can't stand at an orange tree and say, I want this orange to mature faster, right? Like, God does that. And we do that. Like, we have choice in that, right? Yeah. So we get to do us. I get to be who I believe God's called me to be as a disciple. I get to fall at his feet. I get to pray. I get to, to bow, really, right? And to try to work and grow with him. Everything else, not my gig. I can't control it. I can't fix it. I can't force it. I can't rush it. I have to trust that God put me here, right? God put me here. What's he doing around me? And how can I join him?
Yeah. So that kind of segues into the other thing I wanted to ask you about was what's the number one key to getting creative in your little church?
So funny. I have so many thoughts and so there. I honestly think the starting place is getting into community with other people in other churches, other small churches, because we can encourage each other in a way that is so different, right? Because our go-to in getting creative, right, these days is Pinterest. Well, how many things we've done in Pinterest? I can't do that in my small church. Don't tell me to break my kids up in small groups or to do a retreat and have small groups, because my group is small, right? And something happens when you get in community with other people who are looking, not other small churches who are crabby, but other small churches who are looking to see where is God at work. Like that community piece of being in fellowship with others who can share and be, and not tell you if you did it this way, you'd grow and be like me. It's not about large churches mentoring small churches to become large. I think that is a really bad thing because we don't know what God has for us in mind. And some small churches are rural. There aren't even more people to get in. Like, it's not like you say, do this evangelism project. You're in a place, right? Like where God put you. And so I really believe the biggest key is getting into fellowship with others in small churches who can encourage each other, because there isn't one size fits all small church. There isn't one, because your small church may have, 90% retirees. Your small church may be getting 90% of kids from the low income part of your community. I've seen it. Like every small church is so different from each other.
Yeah, right.
And that's different from big churches. Big churches have systems. I think it's just the pool of people. There's a general, like if your church is like 3,000 or 5,000, your parking lot ministry really can look the same. Like it really can. Your coffee ministry can look the same. Small churches, not so much. You've got celiacs in your church. You got to do everything different because that's 10% of your population or 50%. Right? So it's kind of a weird thing, but I really do think a big key is getting into fellowship and community with other small churches who are looking for God at work, not looking to grow numerically necessarily, but looking for God at work.
Yeah. So do people ever ask you, like, are you opposed to numbers or like that? Because I know what's interesting is that your ministry is so clearly to little churches. Yeah. So do you feel like there's something wrong with having a big church, or just explain to us what your perspective is there?
Thank you for asking. And I really need to write a post about this at some point, because it's like I'm saying, don't try to grow, but God wants more people to know Jesus, right? Okay.
Right.
I think the focus is that if you're going to grow, God's going to do it. And all we can do is share. We share the gospel. We reach our community. We pour our lives out for other people. We meet needs, right? But God is the one who does the growing. And when we focus on growing our church in numbers, it changes who we are in the present, right? Because if I pour into this one that God has given me, like you said about that missionary, that one may be doing this huge thing somewhere else someday, bringing, and maybe not, right? But I think it's that end result of like, am I supposed to be focused on growing a ministry for Jesus, or am I supposed to be focused on walking with Jesus?
Right.
Because if I'm walking with Jesus and joining him, right? So no, I am not opposed to growing your church. I think God does amazing things in big churches, mid-sized churches, little churches. And I think he may have that for you, but it's the focus, it's the end result. It's, am I doing this to grow the church? It messes with us. It makes us bitter when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever see people like that? And it is because it's not growing. It didn't work. I poured all this in and you only brought me 3 people. God, what am I doing wrong? We condemn ourselves. It's shame. It's a shame and blame game. It doesn't bring the fruit that I believe God has for us. Love, peace, patience, goodness, all that.
Yeah. I believe that there has to be a distinction, and I do a training on this, the distinction between business and a ministry. And you can do a
so
business, you can do a business for God. You really can. God can call you. God has called us. We've owned a restaurant. We've owned a retail store. God can call you into business and you can do a business for God. But it's not the same pattern as when you're doing a church. The same as a big church isn't the same pattern as a small church. Yeah, they have similarities for sure. And your heart is all sold out to Jesus either way. But I think when you try to be something that God has not called you to be, that's where we lose our joy, we lose our effectiveness, and we lose our creativity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. You just said it really well. I'll write that in my blog post. But I do need to define that because we do have people, we have a Facebook community, and sometimes people join in churches of 1,000. And I reach out to them and I say, hey, why are you joining our group? I just need to know, because we've had people join our church in big churches because they want to teach us how to be big churches.
How to be a big church.
And God has called some people tall and some people short, and some people for big platforms and some people for small platforms.
Amen.
And it doesn't mean the work is less. It's just different. It's different.
Bravo. I love that. I love how you said that. And it's so, so true. And whatever God is calling you to, that's what he has equipped you to do, and will continue to provide the resources for you to do. And he's not going to provide the resources for you to do something else. So it'll just be a really lot of hard work on your part today.
And that one is worth it. Like that one is worth it.
Yes, right.
Jesus would have ministered to the one, like he would have. And when we start saying, this isn't worth it, we need more people, it's just like I say, when somebody walks in the door, do you say, I'm so glad you're here? Right. Or do you say, where are the other 9?
Right.
Where are the other 20? Are you the only one here today?
Right.
Like that's the difference, I think, in small churches. And we need to embrace that and embrace them, because they are worth it. The one is worth it.
It is. And it's so funny how I remember I'm having this memory right now of at a ladies' event, and we had planned, and we had all these tables set up and, kind of planned off a history or whatever. And then only like a third of the people came that we anticipated. And I remember verbalizing that in front of everybody. I'm so sorry that these other tables are empty, but I'm so glad you're here. But I felt it. It was disappointing.
We've all done that. And can you imagine how different it would be to say, oh my gosh, what did God do here? Right. There's a reason that the 6 of us gathered, and we're going to pray on that. Yeah. Why did God, God did this? Like, let's, and it would shift everything. Because I've been there. I've done the same thing. Like, I'm so disappointed. I just set up for 10 and I have 2. My daughter's wedding shower in COVID. Like, she got married in COVID, had a wedding shower in COVID. And we're like, it was so deflating. Boy, we missed that. Because what would God have done if we had said, look at this. It is special. This is different. What does God have in mind for us today?
I love that.
He's here right now.
Right. It's a faith issue. When it comes right down to it, it's a faith issue that God is good, and he is going to work in whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. He is present and ready to work and to bless. Oh, so fun. Well, thank you so much for being here. Wow. Okay. So you guys want to for sure go check out Laurie's website. In fact, you have a summit coming up too. So the website is thecreativelittlechurch.com. And when they get over there, what are they going to find?
When you get over there, you're going to find an amazing website. But if you're looking for the Small Church Pastor's Wife Conference, which is coming up in July, there'll be a little banner running at the bottom that says, don't miss this conference. So if you are a pastor's wife or one in a small church, definitely let her know about that summit. But that website is full of tons of resources specifically written and catered to small churches, because we are all about ministry success, but in a different way. It just means walking with Jesus and joining God in what he's doing.
I just love how you are helping all of us in small churches to celebrate the creativity and the activity of God instead of being frustrated by it.
Yeah, for sure. When we're frustrated by it, we don't see it. You can't join it.
You can't. No, and you don't feel like praising God if you're mad, or if you feel like he's deserted you or has let you down or something. Right. Yeah. So it just helps actually, you give people permission to receive the awesome gift that he's giving us instead of to want something somebody else got.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh gosh, well, it's so fun. I met you because some of our speakers from womenspeakers.com were speaking at one of your summits. And
Oh,
so
I
I
didn't know
went, yeah. So then I went and I was visiting some of them there, and I just loved it. You guys, if you haven't been participating in online summits or whatever, this is one to check out. And I think you have other ones that come also. This is the pastor's wife one. And then what else do you have?
And October 15th and 16th is our big one. It is Small Church Ministry Summit, and it's going to have specialized tracks for youth and children and worship and all sorts of things and leadership. And it's truly mostly for people who volunteer, because small churches are powered more by volunteers than staff. Yeah. So we do get staff members, but if you are volunteering in a small church in any area, there'll be something for you. Our conferences are so fun. They're online, but they have more interaction than most in-person conferences. So.
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of fun at your last one, so I'm excited and excited to have you here. Thanks, you guys, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.